day, grade 12 learners. Welcome to today's agricultural sciences lesson. My name is Zulu Fezdega. This lesson is brought to you by the Northern Cape Department of Education in collaboration with Pagama Research and Development. So learners, welcome to our first lesson of the year, of which is animal nutrition, right? A study that deals with how nutrients are digested and absorbed by different farm animals. Now, learners, by the end of this lesson, you should be able to understand the differences between two types of farm animals, identify or be able to identify the alimentary canals of these farm animals, compare the external and internal structures making up the alimentary canal, provide functions and adaptations of various structures. Please remember that functions and adaptations are different, it's not the same thing, and be able to define different types of digestion and their processes. Now, for you to understand this concept or lesson, I need you guys to go back to grade 10. Remember, you guys were introduced to different types of farm animals. Two of them, right? You learned about ruminants and non-ruminants, ruminants having a complex stomach and then non-ruminants having a simple stomach. So you will need that knowledge when it comes to this topic. Now, I want you, firstly, before I even introduce or teach you more about this concept, I want you to write this baseline assessment, and I'll just give you about 5 or 6 minutes to complete it, and then we will be back with our lesson. Welcome back. I hope that you are done with your baseline assessment. Remember, you need the grade 10 knowledge for you to write or complete this activity. Now, let us look at the activity or the baseline solutions, right? We have the structure alongside illustrates the digestive system of a farm animal. So this is the digestive system or our alimentary canal for this farm animal. Now, the first question says, identify parts A to E above. Now, when identifying, we are expecting you to write the names, right? What is the name of part A? What is the name of part B up until E? Now, when we look at our A is a liver, of which is one of our accessory gland. B will be our jejunum, a part of the small intestines, right? C will be the colon, a part of the large intestines. D will be our simple stomach, right? And then E will be our pancreas. Now let us look at our 1.1.2. Classify the farm animal into ruminant or non-ruminant. Remember, I said to you, you guys were introduced, so you should be able to classify the farm animal illustrated alongside, right? Now, when classifying, I want you to state whether the animal is a ruminant or the animal is a non-ruminant. And this animal is a non-ruminant or a monogastric animal. Now, 1.1.3, provide a reason for the answer to question 1.1.2. The only reason that makes this farm animal to be a non-ruminant, it is because it is a simple stomach. It is only pigs or non-ruminants with a simple stomach for 1 mark, right? 1.1.4, define the term digestive system. Right? A digestive system is a tube that extends from the mouth to the anus, right? It extends from the mouth to the cloaca for chickens, extend from the mouth to the anus for ruminants as well. Now, also, we need to look at the terms that you need to understand when it comes to this topic. Term number 1, a ruminant, type of animal with a complex stomach. Non-ruminant, type of animal with a simple stomach. Digestive system, a tube, right? Digestion, a process, and regurgitation, also a process that takes place in ruminants. Now, guys, welcome. Now, let me just introduce and define what an animal nutrition is for your better understanding, of course. Now, animal nutrition, it is a study of nutrients. Now we are learning more on how nutrients are digested and absorbed by different farm animals. Now, for you to have a better understanding of this topic, so these are the things you need to understand. Firstly, you must understand that in agriculture, we are dealing with different types of farm animals because these are the very same farm animals that are responsible for digestion and absorption of nutrients, right? Secondly, you need to understand that these farm animals have a digestive system, or also referred to as the alimentary canal, of which is a tube, right? Thirdly, you need to understand that each digestive system of a farm animal is made up of different structures, meaning each and every system is made up of different organs or different structures, meaning a single system can have 10 structures making up, right, or consist of 5 structures, right? And the last point you need to understand the functions as well as the adaptations of these various structures making up a digestive system or an alimentary canal. Now, please bear in mind and please understand that there is a difference between a function and the adaptation of a structure. Now, when we are looking at the function, we want to know the role of a structure. What is the role of teeth during digestion or the breaking down of nutrients? Now, when we are looking for the adaptation, how the teeth is designed or how the tooth is designed or the teeth are designed for this specific purpose. I hope you understand the difference between these two. Right, now let us move on to our different types of farm animals. Remember, we said animal nutrition is study of nutrients, how nutrients are digested and absorbed by different farm animals. Now, in agricultural learners, we are dealing with the different types of farm animals. Firstly, there are ruminants, and secondly, there are non-ruminants, also referred to as the monogastric animals. Now, examples of ruminants, we can name cattle, we have goats, we have sheep as well. And the examples of non-ruminants, we have a chicken, also referred to or known as a fowl, and we also have a pig. So these are the different types of farm animals. Meaning in the exam, if a question were to come and say, classify the farm animal, animals are classified into 2, ruminants and non-ruminants. And the question comes again and say, identify the type of farm animal. You need to write ruminant or non-ruminant. But if a question says, identify the animal, that is when you need to mention that an animal, it is a cattle, if it is a cattle, a sheep or goat, or you can say it is a pig or a fowl. Remember, I said again, after understanding the different types of farm animals, you need to understand that these farm animals are made up of different digestive systems. And this digestive system is the one responsible for the digestion of nutrients, digestion and absorption of nutrients. Now, let us look at the alimentary canal. How do we define an alimentary canal, also referred to as a digestive system? Alimentary canal, as I've already indicated, it is a tube that extends from the mouth to the anus, and it also involves various structures, or there are various structures that make up a digestive system, or various structures found in the digestive system. Now, different farm animals have different digestive system. Now, firstly, let us look at the digestive system of a pig. Now, a pig, as I've already indicated, it is a digestive system that extends from the mouth to the anus. So this is the mouth of a digestive system of a pig. Now, firstly, there is a mouth, there is a pharynx, the esophagus, there is a simple stomach, there is or there are small intestines, large intestines, as well as the anus. Now, the small intestines are divided into 3 parts. Firstly, we have the duodenum, secondly, the jejunum, and the last one, the ileum. As well as the large intestines are also divided into 3 parts, right? The first one, it is the cecum, second one, the colon, and the last one, it is the rectum. So this is how a digestive system of a pig looks like. Now let us move on to a digestive system of a chicken. Now, a chicken digestive system is made up firstly of a beak and there is a mouth. In the mouth, we don't have teeth. There is a tongue as well as the saliva secreted by various salivary glands, right? We have the esophagus that is connected to a crop. This is a crop right here connected to this esophagus. And we also have a stomach. A stomach of a fowl is divided into two. The proventriculus, also referred to as a true stomach, as well as a ventriculus, also called a gizzard. So another name or term for gizzard is known as a ventriculus. A ventriculus, right? And we also have the small intestines that are divided into three parts, right? The first part, the duodenum, second part, jejunum, and the last one is the ileum, right? We also have the large intestines. Now, the large intestines of a chicken, they are completely different from that of a pig because a chicken has two ceca. Remember I said a pig has a cecum, a colon, and a rectum, but a chicken has two ceca, right? It has a colon, but it lacks or it does not have a rectum. And the last part of a digestive system of a chicken is also called a cloaca, not an anus, but a cloaca or a vent. So it is different from the external opening of a pig, right? Now let us move on to the ruminants. Let us look at the digestive system of a ruminant. Now our ruminants are divided into two. We have the adult ruminants, we have the young ruminants. So these two ruminants are completely different, or they have different alimentary canals. Now let us look at the alimentary canal of an adult ruminant, the one that is digesting or the one that is consuming or feeding on roughages. Now, a ruminant or an adult ruminant, firstly, it has a mouth. In the mouth, we have teeth. Even though they are complete, they lack canines. There are premolars, incisors, and molars as well, right? There is a saliva secreted by various salivary glands, right? There is also a tongue responsible for various functions. And then secondly, there is the pharynx. Also there is an esophagus. And then esophagus is followed by a complex stomach that is divided into 4 chambers or compartment, right? In this complex stomach, firstly, we have a rumen, of which is the largest. We have a reticulum, right, followed by an omasum, and the last compartment is the abomasum. Now, the first 2 compartments of the complex stomach, they are referred to as the reticulo-rumen. The first 3 compartments of the ruminant are referred to as the full stomach, the first 3, right? And the last compartment or chamber is referred to as the abomasum, also referred to as a true stomach. And we also have the small intestines divided into 3, duodenum, jejunum, and ileum, right? And we also have the large intestines also divided into 3, cecum, colon, as well as the rectum. And the last part of a digestive system of a ruminant is called the anus, right here, the external opening where undigested nutrients are excreted. Now let us move on to the young ruminants. Now, what do we have on the young ruminants? Obviously, the mouth, there are teeth. Even though sometimes they are incomplete, but they are there. There is a tongue, there is a saliva, right? And there is also an esophagus, but we don't call it an esophagus, but it is referred to as the esophageal groove. Esophagus is a matured esophagus, but esophageal groove is still immature. It hasn't reached a maturity stage, right? We also have a complex stomach, but this complex stomach is completely different from that of an adult ruminant. How so? This complex stomach, the first 3 compartments, of which is the rumen, reticulum, and omasum, they are underdeveloped. It is only abomasum that is functioning. especially on ruminants that are still suckling milk, that are still feeding on milk, depending on milk alone. So the difference between these two ruminants is that, number one, young ruminants, they have the esophageal groove, an immature esophagus that transports the milk, and then the complex stomach that does not have the well-developed compartment. The first three compartments are underdeveloped, while the only compartment that is developing, or the only compartment that is fully developed, is abomazam. While on the ruminant or adult ruminant, all compartments are functioning, all compartments are working. So these are the examples or the digestive system of a young as well as the adult ruminant. Now, let us quickly look at the internal structure of a complex stomach. Now, remember, I've already indicated that the complex stomach is divided into four: rumen, reticulum, omazam, as well as the abomazam. So these are the internal structures. This is how these structures looks like. Firstly, we have the rumen with a papillae right here, the finger-like projections. We have the reticulum, of which is a net like structure or a honeycomb. We have an omazam right here, also referred to as a leaf structure. And the last part or compartment or chamber is called the abomazam. So these are the internal structure or the internal view of a complex stomach. Now, let us go into our first activity of the day based on the digestive system and structures, excluding the functions as well as the adaptations, right? When it comes to this one, I will only give you about 5 minutes, and then we'll be back for more remedials. Welcome, learners. I hope you are done writing. Now let us look at the activity 1 solutions. Now, the instruction said, or you were instructed as follows, right? You were told to compare the structural differences between a pig and a fowl under the following structures. You are not using your own, but you must use the following headings, right? Using a mouth, esophagus, as well as the large intestines, right? Firstly, the difference between a fowl and a pig on the mouth, right? As I've already indicated, I said a pig has teeth while the fowl has no teeth. So that is the first difference between these two farm animals. A pig has teeth while a fowl or a chicken has no teeth, right? When it comes to esophagus, pig has just a normal esophagus that is not connected to a crop, while a fowl has an esophagus that is connected to a crop. Yeah, right. I just hope that you got that one correct. Right, when it comes to the large intestines, a pig has a cecum, just one cecum, while a fowl has two ceca. Remember, these are not called the cecum or the two cecums, but we refer to them as two ceca. Cecum in a plural form are called the ceca. So there are two in total. So these are the differences between or the structural differences between a pig as well as a fowl. Now, let us continue with our lesson and focus on the functions. Remember what I said initially. I said for you to understand animal nutrition, you must understand the different types of farm animals, ruminants and non-ruminants. You understand that these farm animals, they are made up of different digestive system, and this digestive system, they have various structures or organs or glands, right? And then thirdly, you must understand the function of each structure or the role that is played by each structure when it comes to the digestion or the breaking down of nutrients. Like, firstly, we'll start with the functions of structures that make up a pig or the digestive system of a pig, right? Firstly, let us start with the teeth, right? The teeth are responsible for the grinding the food particles, increasing the surface area, making sure that more nutrients are digested and more nutrients are absorbed. And that process is also referred to as mechanical digestion. Why? Because the food is being physically or mechanically digested by teeth. So that is our first function, right? The second one, it is the saliva. But before we even look at the functions of the saliva, you must understand where saliva comes from. Now, the saliva is produced by the various salivary glands, right? These salivary glands, they are not part of the digestive system, but they play an indirect role by producing a saliva that plays a big role when it comes to digestion as a process. Now, the salivary glands that produces the saliva are as follows. Firstly, we have the parotid or the parotid. Secondly, we have the sublingual. And thirdly, we have the submandibular. So where are these salivary glands located? Right? The parotid is located behind the ear, as it is indicated here. Right? The sublingual under the tongue and the submandibular on the lower jaw. Now, when preparing for the control test or the exam, you must know the location of each of these, but they are also responsible for the same function, of which is the production of the saliva. Now, what are the function or what is the role played by the saliva during digestion as a process? Firstly, saliva is responsible for lubrication. It moistens and softens the food, right? Before food is grinded, it is moistened and softened by the saliva, right? Secondly, the saliva of a pig, only the pig, please take note, only the pig, it contains an enzyme, and the name of this enzyme is called enzyme amylase. Right? And the very same function or the very same saliva is also responsible for the activation of this enzyme. Right? The fourth function, it acts as a solvent. Right? And then the last function, it acts as a binding agent in the formation of a bolus. Now, what is a bolus? A food that has been chewed by teeth and it has been mixed with the saliva. Now, we don't call it the food particles, but it is now referred to as a bolus. Why? Because it has been mixed with the saliva during mastication or the grinding of food, or during the moistening and softening of the food. Now, let us carry on to the function of or the functions of a tongue. Right? The tongue, firstly, it acts as a taste organ, detects the foreign objects such as nails, helps in chewing, right? Helps in swallowing, right? Also assists in the formation of a bolus. Remember what we said, a bolus is a food, or a bolus is food that is mixed with saliva. Right? It also assists in taking in, it also assists in the taking in of the food. These are the functions of the tongue. Right? Let us move on to the pharynx. Now, the pharynx is responsible for the transportation of a bolus from the mouth to the esophagus, where it will be, where peristalsis will be applied. Right? That is the function of a pharynx. Now, why can't we say it transports the food? Remember, we don't call it food now, but it is now referred to as a bolus. Why? It has been mixed with the saliva. Right? Let us carry on to the function of esophagus. Right? Esophagus is responsible for peristalsis. Right? Also referred to as the contraction and relaxation of muscles. So basically, the esophagus helps or assists with the transportation of a bolus from the esophagus, of course, to the simple stomach, where it will be digested chemically. Right? Now, let us look at the simple stomach of a pig. Now, a simple stomach of a pig is divided into three regions. Region number 1, we have a cardiac sphincter. Number 2, a fundic sphincter. Number 3, a pyloric sphincter. Now, when you look at these regions, just think of a room, right? A room should have an entrance. That should be our cardiac sphincter. the main room should be our fundus sphincter, and the exit part of a room should be our pyloric sphincter, right? Now, what is the function of our cardiac sphincter? Is the first region making up a simple stomach. It is responsible for the transportation of bolus from the esophagus to the simple stomach, and it also prevents the bolus or the food particles from re-entering or from moving back to the esophagus, right? It assists with the transportation to the simple stomach, but it does not take the food from the simple stomach to the esophagus, right? And then the fundus sphincter or the fundus region or the main part of a simple stomach, it secretes gastric juices, right? What do we have in these gastric juices? Firstly, we have a salt, secondly, water, thirdly, mucus, hydrochloric acid, and 2 enzymes, renin as well as pepsinogen. Or I also mentioned hydrochloric acid, right? And the pH of a simple stomach, it is at 2. Why? There is a presence of hydrochloric acid. So basically the function, it secretes gastric juices, right? The function of the last region of a digestive system, of the last region of a simple stomach, it is to transport chyme from the stomach to the small intestine. Now, what is a chyme? Now, once the bolus has been mixed with the gastric juices, the name has to change and it has to be turned into or converted into a chyme. Now, when moving from a simple stomach to the small intestines, we are transporting the chyme. Why? The food particles that has been mixed with the gastric juices. I hope that I'm making sense and you understand what I'm saying. Now let us move on to the function of the small intestines, right? Remember we said small intestines are divided into 3, right? Duodenum, jejunum, and ileum. Duodenum is responsible for maximum digestion, or it is where maximum digestion of nutrients takes place, right? Jejunum is responsible for maximum absorption of nutrients, where main nutrients or most nutrients are absorbed, right? Ileum, we can say minimal digestion and absorption. There's absolutely nothing much that occurs in the ileum. Now let us look at the large intestines functions, right? Firstly, let us look at the functions of the cecum. Now, cecum, firstly, it is responsible for microbial digestion. Why? Because a small number of microorganisms are secreted by the cecum, of which makes the cecum being responsible for the microbial digestion, right? It is also responsible for the maximum absorption of water. It is where maximum absorption, or it is where water absorption or maximum water absorption takes place or okay, right? The function of a colon, responsible for the absorption of the absorption of digested nutrients such as volatile fatty acids, right? The B vitamins, the fat soluble vitamins, water absorption as well, right? And the last part of a digestive system, of which is the rectum, it temporarily stores undigested nutrients, those nutrients that were not digested, or we can say it temporarily stores feces or manure or the excreta, right? And the last part of a digestive system of a pig, it is the anus, responsible for egestion, responsible for excretion, or taking out the undigested nutrients, taking out the feces, taking out the manure, taking out the excreta. So these are the functions of structures making up a digestive system of a pig. Now let us carry on to the functions of the different structures or various structures making up a digestive system of a fowl. Now, firstly, we have a beak. Right, this is a beak right here, responsible for taking in the food. Right, secondly, we have a tongue that assists in chewing. Remember, we said a pig has teeth, but a fowl has no teeth. So that is why a tongue is only responsible for swallowing, but it does not take part or a role. It does not play a role during mastication or the grinding of food, right? And then Esophagus, responsible for peristalsis. It moves the food particles from the esophagus to the crop, right? And then a crop, it moistens and softens the food, right? It also temporarily stores the food particles, right? Now let us move to our stomach of a fowl, right? Remember, we said our stomach is divided into two: proventriculars, our true stomach, as well as the ventriculars. Now, proventriculars secrete gastric juices responsible for chemical digestion, and ventriculars, also called the gizzard, we said initially, right? The gizzard secrete the small stones that act as teeth. Remember, a fowl does not have teeth. So this is where the food particles are physically grinded. This is where mastication takes place. This is where we are increasing the surface area for better digestion and absorption. Now let us move to the small intestines. Same functions as a pig. Duodenum, maximum digestion. Jejunum, maximum absorption of digested nutrients. Ileum, minimal digestion and absorption. Right? The large intestines of a chicken or a fowl, remember we said, firstly, it has tussica. So this tussica is responsible for water absorption, but there is no microbial digestion. Why? It does not at all secrete the microorganisms, right? And then the function of a colon, responsible for absorption of water, B complex, vitamins, minerals, and volatile fatty acids, right? And the last part of a digestive system of a fowl, it is the cloaca that is responsible for taking both out the urine as well as the feces. That is why in general we say, or we normally say, or mostly say, it acts as a urogenital system. Why? It takes out the feces and it also takes out the urine. So that is the function of a cloaca or a vent. Now let us carry on to the functions of structures making up a digestive system of a ruminant. Now, a ruminant, as we have already indicated, we said a ruminant has a mouth with teeth responsible for physical digestion. There is a saliva. But with this saliva of a ruminant or a cattle, it does not secrete enzyme amylase. But for the rest of other functions, they match with the functions of a pig, meaning it binds, it acts as a binding agent, etc., etc. But the only function that is not included, it is the secretion of enzyme amylase. The ruminant does not have the enzyme amylase. And secondly, there is no activation of this enzyme. Why? Because it is not secreted. Now, a bolus has to be formed after the grinding of food. A tongue has to transport or assist with a swallowing. Pharynx has to transport to the esophagus, and esophagus has to be responsible for the peristaltic movement, contraction, and relaxation of muscles, right? And then after, the food has to go into the complex stomach. Now let us look at the first compartment of the complex stomach, of which is a rumen. Initially, we said a rumen is the largest compartment. It has finger-like projections called the papillae. So these are the papillae right here, responsible for the warm temperature in the rumen, right? These papillae, they act as the heating rod, as I've already indicated, that they contribute to the warm temperature in the rumen, right? The very same compartment secrete microorganisms, right, called the bacteria, protozoa, as well as fungi, responsible for microbial digestion, right? Also responsible for fermentation, also responsible for the microbial digestion. Now let us move on to the next functions of other compartments. Secondly, we have the reticulum. Reticulum is known as being the honeycomb or a net-like structures. As you can see, it looks like a net structurally, right? The functions of reticulum, it traps foreign objects such as nails or wires, right? It is where foreign objects accumulate, or it acts as a filter, right? And we have our omasum right here, right? Our omasum is a leaf-like structure, right? It is responsible for water absorption, Why, or how does it responsible, or how does it play its role, right? It is a leaf-like structure. It is a leaf-like structure. We can't just say it is finger-like projection. That is not allowed, but it is a leaf-like structure that is responsible for water absorption. And then also number 2, it dries out the food, making sure that the solid particles are prevented from entering the abomasum, of which is a true stomach that secrete gastric juices. Now let us move on to our last compartment, of which is abomasum. Abomasum is also known as a true stomach or a milk stomach. Why do we call it a milk stomach? Remember, we said it is only the only compartment that is available, or the only compartment that is fully developed in young ruminants. So when the milk is transported from the esophageal, it goes straight to the abomasum, where it will be digested, right? So that is why it is also called the milk compartment. So this abomasum secrete the gastric juices. So it functions the same way as the simple stomach of a pig, and function the same way as a proventriculus of a chicken. Now, if I say in the simple stomach of a pig, we have we have gastric juices. You need to understand that in the abomasum, gastric juices are secreted. In the proventriculus, gastric juices are also secreted. Why? Because these 3 structures, they function the same. Simple stomach function the same way as the proventriculus of a fowl, and the proventriculus of a fowl function the same way as an abomasum of a ruminant. They all secrete microorganisms, right? Also, this compartment is responsible for chemical digestion, as it is secreting gastric juices with enzymes, right? It also turns the bolus into chyme. Remember I said initially, when a bolus has been mixed with the gastric juices, the name or the term has to change into a chyme, right? So these are the functions of internal structures, or the structures that make up a complex stomach of a ruminant. Now let us go into our second activity of the day. But before I even get into the second activity, remember I didn't mention the role played by the small intestines, large intestines, and the anus when it comes to the ruminants, or the ruminant as a farm animal. Now, the small intestines, or the functions of small intestines, are the same throughout or across all farm animals. But when it comes to the large intestines of a ruminant, firstly, the cecum does not secrete microorganisms, meaning there is only maximum water absorption that is taking place. When it comes to the colon, absorption of water, absorption of B complex, absorption of volatile fatty acids, absorption of other nutrients, minerals are absorbed, right? Function of rectum, temporary storage of undigested nutrients or feces. The anus, it excretes or it takes out the feces, but not urine. The feces, also called the manure. Now let us move on, or carry on with our activity of the day, of which is our second activity. Now you will read, you will analyze, and then you will answer the question. I will give you just about 5 minutes, and then we'll be back for more remedials or solutions. Welcome back. I hope everyone has completed their activity. Now let us look at the activity 2 solutions, right? The picture alongside, not below, alongside represents the alimentary canal of a farm animal. Remember we said an alimentary canal is also referred to as a digestive system. It is a tube, right? A tube that extends from the mouth to the anus for most animals. And when it comes to a chicken, it extends from the mouth to the cloaca or vent. Now, our first question says, identify the type of farm animal in the diagram. Identify the type of farm animal in the diagram. Now, it was indicated that you need to indicate or identify a type. Now, remember, when it comes to classification, we classify into ruminants or non-ruminants, but we don't classify into pigs and fowl. We don't classify into cattle and goats. We don't do that. We classify into ruminants and non-ruminants. So to answer this question, your answer for 2.1 should be a non-ruminant or a monogastric ruminant. A non-ruminant or a monogastric ruminant. But if you wrote it is a fowl, you are incorrect. I'm sorry. If you wrote it is a pig, you are still incorrect. So the correct answer is non-ruminant or monogastric. Why? Because the question indicated that we need to indicate the type. We need to identify the type. Now for 2.2, the structure labeled N serves two functions. Name these functions for 2 marks. Now, your answers at all times should match with the mark allocation. Meaning, for 2 marks, you must mention 2 things. For a mark, you must mention just a single thing. Right? In this case, we'll say first function of N, of which is a vent or a cloaca. Right? It takes out the feces. Right? The second function, it also takes out the urine. So it takes out both the urine and the feces. So this is how you answer, or you must answer in preparation, especially for the control test. Remember, we are still writing. You will be writing the formal, the task, etc. Right? 2.3, name the part, or name or provide the name of the parts labeled B and D. Now, where is our B? This is our B. Where is our D? This is our D right here. So our B is our esophagus, and then our D, it is a crop for 2 marks. B, esophagus, and then D, a crop. Now, if you wrote proventriculus, incorrect. Right? If you wrote a gizzard, still incorrect. But these are the correct answers for activity 2. Now, let us look at the differences between these farm animals. Cattle / sheep / goats, or pig, as well as a fowl. Now, you must be able to differentiate or to provide differences between these farm animals, right? Using the following headings, right? Using the mouth, the esophagus, the stomach, the small intestines, as well as the large intestines. Now, let us look at how these are different in the mouth. Firstly, a mouth of a cattle has lips, there are teeth, and those teeth are incomplete. They lack canines. There are no canines. Right? There is a tongue as well as a saliva. Now, a saliva of pigs does not secrete enzyme amylase. Right? When it comes to a pig, there are lips, teeth, complete teeth, canines, premolars, incisors, and molars. They are complete. There is a tongue, there is a saliva that also secrete enzyme amylase. But when it comes to the mouth of a fowl, there is a beak, saliva, there is a tongue, but there are no teeth. That is why for a fowl to physically grind the feed, it must have the ventriculus, also referred to as a gizzard, that secrete small stones that act as teeth. Now let us move to the esophagus. The esophagus of a cattle is not connected to a crop. It is just a normal esophagus, responsible for peristalsis. Right? When it comes to a pig, not connected to a crop as well. But when it comes to a fowl, the esophagus is indeed connected to a crop. Differences of or in the esophagus as a structure. When it comes to the stomach, right? Cattle has a complex stomach that is divided into 4 chambers. A pig has a simple stomach divided into 3 regions. And then a fowl has a simple stomach as well, but the only difference is that it is divided into 2 parts, the proventriculus and the ventriculus. Right, we move on to the small intestines. Small intestines of a cattle, sheep, or goat, they are very long. That is why more absorption takes place in cattle or ruminants. Then, when it comes to a pig, they're a bit shorter when compared to the cattle. Right, when it comes to a fowl, the small intestines are a bit shorter. Right, the large intestines of a cattle, it has the enlarged cecum. It is enlarged, right? It has an anus as well, even though an anus does not fall part of the large intestines, but let's just include it, right? And then when it comes to a pig, there is a cecum, just one cecum, right? There is an anus again, right? When it comes to a fowl, there are 2 ceca, and there is a cloaca. Remember, we said there is a difference between a cloaca and an anus. An anus only takes out feces, but a cloaca takes out both feces and urine. Now, as we have already introduced or have already done or a bit of introduction of animal nutrition, now let us get into digestion as a process. What is digestion? The breaking down of food into smaller components or particles. We said in animal nutrition, it is a study of nutrients. How nutrients are digested and absorbed by the farm animals. And the process responsible for this breaking down of food particles, it is called the digestion. And digestion takes place in the alimentary canal. It takes place in the digestive system of farm animals. Remember again, we said a digestive system has various organs, or it has various structures responsible for various functions, right? Now, digestion is the process of breaking down food particles from complex to simpler, from insoluble to soluble, from large into smaller. Now, there are different types of digestion. Firstly, we have mechanical digestion, the physical digestion, where it involves teeth as well as the muscular contractions. And the aside of this physical digestion. Now, where in the digestive system there are teeth, you will know that mechanical digestion takes place. Where there are muscular contraction, you will understand that there is a mechanical digestion. Now, our second type, it is the chemical digestion that is controlled or facilitated by enzymes, where nutrients are digested from insoluble into soluble. Animals cannot absorb nutrients in a complex form. That is why they need to move from insoluble to soluble. And the only enzyme, or the only digestion that deals with this breaking down, it is the chemical digestion. Why? It involves the various enzymes in the digestive system or secreted by the digestive system. Right? Our third type, it is the microbial digestion, also referred to as the fermentation. Now, microbial digestion, it is where the nutrients are digested by the microorganisms. Now, where in the digestive system there are microorganisms, you will know that microbial or fermentation takes place. Where there are enzymes, you will know that chemical or enzymatic digestion take place. Where there are teeth or muscular contraction, you will know that physical or mechanical digestion take place. Now, there are various stages of breaking down food in the digestive system. or there are various stages of digestion. Firstly, food or nutrients cannot be digested if they are not ingested. Now, our first stage of breaking down of food, or the first stage of digestion, it is the ingestion. Now, ingestion is a process of taking in the food through the mouth. Before food is broken down, it has to be taken in through the mouth through a process again called ingestion. And then the second stage of the breaking down of food is digestion. We've already indicated a process of breaking down the food particles from complex into simpler. Right? Our second stage of breaking down of food or digestion, it is the absorption. When nutrients digested are absorbed in the small intestines, or they are absorbed by the small intestines into the bloodstream. They move from the small intestines and into the bloodstream. And the name of that process is called the absorption. Remember, the only nutrients that are absorbed are the digested nutrients. Right? Our fourth stage of breaking down, it is assimilation, when nutrients are carried now from the blood to all body cells. They are moving from the blood to all body cells. And this stage is referred to as assimilation. Right? And the last stage is called egestion, also referred to as excretion, where feces are eliminated through the anus, where feces are taken out through the anus. So these are the stages of breaking down of food that takes place in the alimentary canal, or the digestive system of various farm animals. Now, this will be your homework based on the alimentary canals, based on the adaptations, based on the differences, based on the functions. So you will write this at home, and then we will come back on our next lesson and discuss the activity solution or the homework solutions, right? Now let us recap on our lesson. Now, the content that was covered, we looked at the animal nutrition as the study of nutrients, how nutrients are digested by different farm animals. And we said these different farm animals that are responsible for digestion are divided into two, or they are classified into two, into ruminants and non-ruminants, right? Examples of ruminants, we can name sheep, goats, and cattle. Examples of non-ruminants, we can name chickens as well as a pig, right? And then we also discussed about the structures making up the digestive system. It's either of a fowl, a sheep, or a pig. The functions of these, how are they adapted to perform their functions, and we also discussed more about the different types of digestion that takes place in the alimentary canal of various types of various farm animals, right? And then on our next lesson, we will be discussing more about the digestion that is taking place in the alimentary canal. Right, we'll be discussing more on how nutrients are digested by these structures and enzymes, as well as the microorganisms. Right, we'll be looking at the different enzymes involved in the breaking down of food from soluble to soluble. Right, thank you so much for tuning in and for listening and paying attention. I hope that you gained something, and you will gain even more on our lessons that are still coming, right? Don't forget to complete that activity at home and then come back and see whether you got that one correct. And don't forget to classify. Don't forget to go back to grade 11 to go back to grade 10's content and look at these different types of farm animals, because you will need that concept in grade 12, right? Thank you so much, and see you on our next lesson, of which will be the digestion of nutrients.